UK Cambridge scientists were at the last minute denied the right to experiment with, but Harvard University in America have got hold of the idea. Stratospheric aerosol spraying, right up there near the ozone layer. The whole planet gets a reflective layer that lasts a couple of years. This would need an amount of solution of a teragram, which is about the weight of the Golden Gate Bridge. Harvard aren't currently allowed to experiment with a bag of sugar size injection into the stratosphere because the knock-on effects aren't known. Portugal wages are quite low, public transport along the coast is quite good, vehicles are very expensive, so people can't travel very far to their work, partly adding to why the country is so empty. Central Portugal has avoided that really by planting lots of eucalyptus, described as pine forests, but it's the cork oak that Portugal has as an indigenous habitat. The exotic paper plantations are causing a problem. Not only is there a whole new range of insects, birds and bees, and the soil's getting ruined, the exfoliating bark and crazy high temperatures associated with global warming have caused firenados, multiple forest fires, intense heat. A firenado cannot really be put out, though you have to try. Putting in traditional cork forest fire breaks, but it's a bit of a swindle. It's not actually happening. But it's not just paper making. These eucalyptus go in towards biofuels. Britain is trying to be more renewable, more environmentally friendly, and buys a lot of this eucalyptus in pellet form for its biofuel generators. Looks green, and you might even think the firenados, though there's loss of human life, create smoke, and that blocks out the rays of the sun, doesn't it? No, not at the right level. And can it have the effect of cloud seeding and floods and breathing difficulties for much of Europe? At certain times of year, Saharan dust from the desert blows over Portugal and affects visibility. It reduces global temperature locally, and it also acts as hygroscopic nuclei to clouds. And there's lots of rainfall, as well as just poor visibility, but that's only at certain times of year, not during the most summer heatwave, when the Saharan dust brings Saharan temperatures, some of the hottest in the world. The temperature rise of the Atlantic Ocean, which Portugal borders, has been lagging behind, rather wonderfully, other oceans for many years. But it's now making up for it with a vengeance. There's reasons for that. The Atlantic Ocean is running a fever. Waters off Florida have become a hot tub, bleaching the third largest barrier reef in the world. Off the coast of Ireland, extreme heat has implicated in the mass deaths of seabirds. For years, the North Atlantic was warming more slowly than other parts of the world, but now it's caught up, and then some. Recently, the sea surface surged to 25 degrees C, nearly 1 degree C warmer than the previous high of 2020. The temperatures haven't even peaked yet. This year's been crazy, says a NASA atmospheric physicist. The obvious and primary driver of this trend is society's emissions of greenhouse gases, which trap heat that the oceans steadily absorb. Another influence has been recent weather, especially stalled high-pressure systems that suppress cloud formation and allow the oceans to bake in the sun. But there's also the unintended consequence of good intentions. In 2020, the United Nations cut ships' sulphur pollution by more than 80% and improved air quality worldwide. But there's been disappearing clouds known as ship tracks. The reduction lessened the effect of sulfate particles in seeding and brightening the distinctive low-lying reflective clouds that follow in the wake of ships and help cool the planet. It's a big natural experiment. Oceanographers point out we're changing the clouds. By dramatically reducing the number of ship tracks, the planet has warmed up faster, studies have found. The trend is magnified in the Atlantic, where maritime traffic is particularly dense. In the shipping corridors, the increased light represents a 50% boost in the warming effect of human carbon emissions. It's as if the world suddenly lost the cooling effect from a fairly large volcanic eruption each year. Geoengineering working in the wrong direction. There is a strategy to slow global warming called marine cloud brightening. Ships can inject salt particles back into the air to make clouds more reflective. The dramatic decline in ships' tracks is clear evidence that humanity could cool off the planet significantly by brightening the clouds. It suggests pretty strongly that you wanted to do this on purpose. You could. There's uncertainty about the complexity. Some of the basic science is fairly well understood. Sulfate or salt particles seed clouds by creating nuclei for vapour to condense droplets. The seeds also brighten existing clouds by creating smaller, more numerous droplets. But smaller droplets are less likely to merge with others, potentially suppressing rainfall. That would increase the size of clouds and add to their brightening effect. But modelling also suggests that bigger clouds are more likely to mix with dry air, which would reduce their reflectivity. I don't know, even on a basic level, bigger clouds means bigger storms, doesn't it? So these linear ship clouds are a course of study showing a 50% reduction since 2020, with the effect of warming the planet by 0.1 watt per metre. Worldwide, worse in the Atlantic. But there is a clear link between the low-level linear clouds and the puffy, high-atmosphere cumulus clouds that previously no link was seen. Where winds naturally flow in the same direction as this ship traffic corridors, like off the Atlantic coast of Angola, it was found that the lower pollution, the cloud droplet sizes had grown to the largest size in the past 2 decades. Improving air quality for us has made global temperatures rise. Studying the interaction between artificial pollution and clouds is so important because of the prevalence of cloud seeding used as an industrial and a weapon of war. The Spanish have been seeding clouds over Murcia and Valencia, Almeria province too, not to make rain happen but to keep it away. They want to keep it away so there's lots of sunshine for crops to grow and mainly for the tourists. But there's the gota fria effect. These are storms that do happen after the several months of no rainfall at all, where the toxic lead oxide and silver iodine diatomite that's used for the cloud seeding comes down with the rain and causes respiratory problems, diseases for the local inhabitants. Do no harm to your country neighbours, and the environment, world environment as a whole, is the general guiding principle in the EU. In the 2008 Olympics, China similarly used cloud seeding not to produce rain but to keep it off the Olympics. In Tibet, China is trying to mitigate severe hailstorms, but they're meddling with the monsoon cycle. In Australia, for years, they're trying to stop the bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef by generating clouds to provide shade. The ski industry in America, Telluride, amongst others, wants guaranteed snow. So they seed the clouds to produce snow. In California, they need water for all the crops. So they seed the clouds. The distribution of grapes can provide us with the first map of groundwater derived from cloud seeding. For 5 years in the Vietnam War, America used cloud seeding to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a weapon of war. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, Russia cloud seeded so that the contaminated rain would fall before it reached Moscow. And prosaically, it clears fog at airports. It was used in the 1940s, but fell out of favour in the 1980s, an unacceptable ethical environmental hazard. Desert areas of America point out that new water park developments are much better than golf resorts in terms of wasting water. The cloud seeding is slightly more ethically done, like with the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, by sea salt spray. The tiny particles that are very difficult to spray through a nozzle. At high altitudes, they need to be small particles, smaller than the natural particles, more of them in the cloud make the cloud brighter by having lots more smaller water droplets, and the solar reflection is greater. There is the concern that just shooting stuff into low-level clouds, it never really gets to the high-level clouds where it has the most effect, even though it's had a effect on the ground, so to speak, and has given us the rain or taken away the rain on the ground. And if the brightening is never really getting to the high altitude, it can cause more of a problem and almost stall climatic cycles. But it is very popular with fossil fuel lobbyists that want to delay the transition away from fossil fuels because it can, to a certain extent, mask the effects. But this is a little bit like taking opium to have an operation to solve an ailment. But then if you're not actually reducing your carbon dioxide emissions as a world and not halting acidification, using mass cloud seeding even at a high level is like taking the opium but not having the operation. It's no silver bullet solution. It's a desperate last-ditch solution to recreate the ice cap reflective effect, or the effect of a volcano blocking out the sun for a year or two to a certain extent, and the effect of forest fire smoke. But politically, any time you stop it, things get instantly catapulted, dramatically worse. Use it or lose it, water for agriculture, quotas and golf courses in the desert, all change politically. But there's another stratospheric solution that UK Cambridge scientists were at the last minute denied the right to experiment with, but Harvard University in America have got hold of the idea. Stratospheric aerosol spraying right up there near the ozone layer. The whole planet gets a reflective layer that lasts a couple of years. This would need an amount of solution of a teragram, which is about the weight of the Golden Gate Bridge. Harvard aren't currently allowed to experiment with a bag of sugar size injection into the stratosphere because the knock-on effects aren't known. The knock-on effects of cloud seeding aren't known. If China moves some rain from the Yangtze to the Yellow River, how will this affect India? Stratospheric aerosol spraying? What could possibly go wrong? Well, you might have some clue in the fact that the actual scientists working on it never want it to need to be used. They want everyone to concentrate on reducing carbon dioxide emissions and the acidification of the oceans. But do point out that the bag of sugar quantity experiment would help map toxic effects for any future desperation. But exactly what trees you plant to act as the lungs of the planet, even in Portugal, far from the palm oil and orangutan habitat, biodiversity destruction of the Far East that we all take advantage of. Portugal has its own gotafria type event because of the natural Saharan sand, but now meddling for biofuels for Britain, the global heat bands heading northwards in the northern latitudes due to carbon dioxide, and the warmer oceans carrying more water vapour in the clouds, meaning exaggerated flooding for Portugal for other times of the year. The traditional and managed insulating cork oak habitats extend the country's poor air quality season even further when they burn, and the obfuscation of the smoke does little to help the reflectivity back into space of the sun's rays unless those particles get to high altitude. The importance of understanding and modelling complexities, great complexities on a global scale, how a butterfly flaps its wings in one side of the world and affects global political cooperation, I hope.